Brussels, 11th September 2007. The police uses tear gas and brute force to scatter a peaceful demonstration in remembrance of the 9/11 victims. By order of the socialist mayor, democratically chosen members of parliament are handcuffed, taken away and locked up for hours in the cellars of the Palace of Justice. The police violence in the capital of Europe is, alas, not an isolated incident. After the Danish Mohammed cartoons, newspapers and journalists in Belgium stepped into the breach for freedom of speech. This principle, however, does not exist anymore in our country. By accusing Vlaams Belang of so-called Islamophobia, the traditional parties try to take away our subsidies and financial means. This would be a catastrophe, as political parties are no longer allowed to accept private gifts. It is the umpteenth phase of the witch hunt against our party. In 2004, Vlaams Blok, the predecessor of Vlaams Belang, was convicted and banned because of racism. Just like Vlaams Belang does today, Vlaams Blok pleaded for a firm immigration policy. This implies a limited access to the social security system, a restriction of imported marriages and family reunification, and a deportation of illegal aliens and criminal immigrants. A lot of parties in our neighboring countries nowadays have adopted similar points of view, and in countries such as Denmark, the Netherlands, France and Germany, these propositions are even part of government policy. But in Belgium, after a political trial, this is called discrimination and racism. The British journalist Stephen Pollard rightly concluded that the Vlaams Blok trial was nothing more than a diversion, the political liquidation of an opposition party that could not be tamed during the elections. In the holy war against Vlaams Belang, the media proves to be an excellent ally. After the undemocratic political cordon sanitaire was set up, which is an agreement between the so-called democratic parties not to have talks or make deals with Vlaams Belang, the media also applied a cordon médiatique. Political themes such as crime, the failed integration of immigrants, and Flemish independence were taboos for years. But it was of no avail. Vlaams Belang gained one victory after the other, and shortly after the judicial sentence, our party was acquitted by the Flemish voters. But the witch hunt continues. The European Parliament has, influenced by the Belgian traditional parties, removed the parliamentary immunity of Frank van Hecke, Vlaams Belang, member of the European Parliament and former chairman of our party. Years ago, the Flemish Public Broadcasting Network, VRT, drew up an official document that ordered journalists to ban Vlaams Belang politicians as much as possible from debates and news broadcasts. The document was applauded by the traditional parties and the Belgian Society of Journalists. In an attempt to completely silence Vlaams Belang, broadcasts for political parties are no longer allowed. A journalist openly admitted, "In these broadcasts, Philippe de Winter could openly express his political views. This was more than enough to ban these broadcasts. We thought that freedom of speech implied the expression of different opinions, without censorship." Other media followed the example of the Public Broadcasting Network. Newspapers and magazines refused to publish contributions of Vlaams Belang politicians. Readers' letters that bear resemblance to our points of view are censored. Not a single publishing company wants to publish books written by Vlaams Belang politicians. Vlaams Belang then decided to set up its own publishing company, but big bookstores refused to sell these books. Newspapers and magazines refused to publish paid election advertisements of our party. And finally, in the build-up to the June 2009 elections, election spots have also been banned from the public broadcasting network. However, free and equal media access, also for opposition parties, is a basic condition for fair elections and real democracy. Just to be perfectly clear, we are not talking about some African banana republic. This is not Vladimir Putin's Russia. This is Belgium, the heart of Europe. Freedom of speech is a precious good. It is the foundation of our democracy. There can be no democracy without an actual opposition. In a democracy, it is not up to politically appointed judges to rule on party programs. This is the task of the voters. Democracy requires conflicting opinions about Flemish independence, about the integration of immigrants, about the rise of radical Islam. Freedom of speech cannot be restrained, even not in the name of multicultural peace and so-called tolerance. Freedom of speech has to imply opinions that can be offensive. This principle is one of the pillars of our European civilization. These European values, norms and freedoms have to be defended. That's why we and you stand on the barricades. Because we want to be in charge in our own country. And because Europe has to remain European.